Dustin Poirier was the one who put on the masterpiece performance in this fight, and the man basically did everything you could have asked him to do if he was to beat Conor McGregor, and more. And in Conor's defense, there were many things that seemed to go against him, and we'll discuss that too. Now, the first thing to notice is the fact that straight out the gate, Dustin is happy to throw some big leg kicks. He's always had a decent leg kicking game, but he's come refined. He's put a game plan in place where he will be sticking with them, and we will touch on these later on in the fight. And of course, Conor, as also shown later, doesn't really do a great job of checking these. He follows this up by shooting for an early takedown that many seem to think was a surprise, but surely the likes of Mike Brown and Dustin himself would have thought that his best chance to beat Conor is to wear him out, and he begins that process by shooting for a double leg, and he gets it. And to my own surprise, it only takes him one go. I would have thought that Conor would have prepped better takedown defense, but Dustin's initial shot is good enough. And from then on, Conor doesn't really take too much damage, and he's got his back up against the fence. He's working his way up, and he successfully does so. But like mentioned earlier, the point is for Dustin to wear Conor out. He doesn't really have to maul him, he doesn't really have to submit him. He just needs to begin to wear on him, and he does that successfully. And so the first couple minutes are spent in them battling for underhooks and trying to battle for the clinch, which is already a giant win for Dustin, given every second of the first 2 rounds that he can keep away from that left is extremely precious. Conor doesn't really begin to land any significant shots till about 90 seconds left in the first round. And this is where we get a better look at this newly developed Conor McGregor, the one that they had developed for this fight, a version that seems to make no real sense. I say this because usually we are used to Conor being light on his feet, using his kicks to set up his left as shown in their first fight and as expected in this one. And one that is looking to stay outside of boxing range, one that is looking to snipe you, not really look to box with you. Now, in Conor's defense, he does land a couple 1-2s, he does land a couple lefts late in the round. However, Dustin's just able to take this. Now, you can put this down to rust or a lack of power, or maybe him losing his power, but you have to remember Dustin Poirier is one of the, if not the biggest lightweight. And it's not crazy to imagine that maybe he could just take a couple of these shots clean to the chin without being too phased. But nevertheless, Conor does land some clean jabs at this point. He lands a couple other lefts. He starts to dictate some of the range, but it is at this moment in the fight where you start to pick up a couple of new details in Conor's game. One of them being the fact that he is throwing little to zero kicks at this point, which is important to mention given the way they were fighting in their first fight, where Conor famously uses his kicks to throw off Dustin and line up his own left. And it's important to note that many people were expecting Conor to throw them in this fight because of the fact that Conor himself was talking about it. And not only is Conor not throwing his leg kicks as mentioned earlier, but in fact he's actually happy to stay within this boxing range, which is of course not where Conor usually likes to fight. You can tell by his stance, it's guard up, he's low, it's almost like he's looking to go toe to toe with Dustin Poirier, who is of course predominantly a boxer instead of his usual style, which is where he mixes in his boxing with his overall striking, something which has been effective his whole career and was always going to be more useful in a fight against Dustin Poirier. However, as a result of this new wide stance where he is extremely heavy on the front leg, yet also lower than he usually is, meaning he's not really using the full potential of his reach, it means that he's susceptible getting his leg kicked. And Dustin does an amazing job of just making sure that he's constantly chopping away at that front leg. This, as a result, either throws off Conor's rhythm completely or just stops him from being able to make any entries, giving Dustin that extra space that he needs to get his own boxing going, and also acts as an investment for later in the fight, where he can slow down Conor completely by just taking away his front leg, which he does throughout the course of this fight. And as a result, this first round is a giant breakthrough for Dustin Poirier. Not only does he win the round, but he's able to make sure that he doesn't get touched by too many lefts. He is able to wear on Conor, and he takes full advantage of Conor being heavy on his front leg and just starts to chop away at it, a tactic which he was trying to do in the first fight, but he's even more successful at it now, and one that, as I mentioned earlier in my videos, I'm surprised that no one else has used. Conor has always been someone who sits heavy on that front right leg, and Dustin just does an amazing job by just starting to take it away bit by bit. In the second round, there's not much to go over, it's just more of the same. Dustin comes out, he keeps chopping away at that leg. The only difference now is, even though Conor is landing, you can tell that power is gone. Like that extra zip that he has on his left is not there anymore. He's not able to sit on that right leg. And for some reason, because of the fact that he's sitting so low on it, like he's so low down in his stance, he's just become this boxer, like high guard, low stance. He's trying to go hook for hook, jab for jab. Dustin Poirier is someone who likes to sit in the pocket. I mean, I don't understand the logic behind this new boxer Conor McGregor. It just means that even though he is landing somewhat, he's not landing really cleanly. And if he's not going to land cleanly, knowing his gas tank, knowing the fact that his front leg is fading, you know how this fight's going to go. And as the round wears on, again he connects here and there, but Dustin's just able to wear it. I mean, he isn't putting the full brunt of his power in, and Dustin with his chin is just able to eat this. And at this point, Conor starts to miss. He starts to miss quite badly. Even while watching live, you could tell how this was going to end. Dustin has some of the best predatory instincts in all of MMA, and once he sniffed that this was the beginning of the end, I think you could see Conor prodding along. You could see him not being able to generate power. He's just in that pocket. He's not really connecting anymore. And eventually, after Conor starts overextending, Dustin just moves out of the way. He circles around. He starts to tee off, and then it's just an avalanche. He just connects. He becomes more efficient. He starts landing more. Conor is just backed up against the fence. I don't think he really has the legs underneath him to move in at that point. Just from one hook to the other hook to finally this big right hook that comes low, just cleanly connects, and that's it. All credit goes to Dustin Poirier. The man had an incredible game plan. Even in my last video, I mentioned the 2 or 3 things he would have to do in order to make sure that he even has a chance against Conor. Not only did he do them, but he did them to an incredibly high level. However, this fight just makes you question what was thinking behind Conor McGregor's new style. I mean, the man has obviously already beaten Dustin Poirier, and not only has he beaten Dustin Poirier, Poirier hasn't really changed much as a fighter. He's improved as a fighter, but he's more or less the same guy. Yet Conor decided to, for some reason, become this pure boxer who looks to walk down his opponents via head movement and looks to get in the pocket. I mean, it was quite surreal. He was trying to half counter, half box. I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out. I watched the fight back like 5 to 10 times now. I still don't understand what the logic is here. I have a feeling that this is more to do with the fact that him and his own boxing coach have got back together. In the build up to this fight, there's been a lot of talk about the best boxer in the UFC. Even in the last week, he's been talking about Max Holloway not being on his level, and maybe he was just trying to prove a point. But whatever the logic is, if he has any goals of being successful in this division, he would obviously need to change up this new style. One which would also include the idea of checking his kicks instead of just eating them flush. Once again, thanks for listening guys and tuning in to Modern Combat. And just as I sign out, I want to give a massive shout out to my sponsor, Fight Fit. You'll be hearing a lot about them very soon, and please like, subscribe and share this video, and by all means please start any discussions in the comment section.